Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Overwatch League fan thoughts and analysis video. Before we get started, just want to say I know I missed an upload on Friday. I've been extremely busy with schoolwork recently, and I took a day off of uploading just so I could focus on all that. But I'm back, and you'll be getting 2 videos tomorrow to make up for it. So you have that to look forward to. But let's jump into the Overwatch League stuff. And of course, as this is a fan thoughts and analysis video, before we can jump in to week 3 of stage 2, we need to take a look at my week 2 performance here in stage 2. And I wasn't great. 10-6 overall. 1-3 in my big pick games. So really dropped the ball this this week on that. So that's my bad. But let's take a look at how I did. So of course, Thursday, Paris Eternal beat the Washington Justice. Florida Mayhem. Paris Eternal beat the Florida Mayhem. Pretty one-sided affair. Eternal dropped one map, I believe, which is the Mayhem, I believe, until they played New York, had won a map in all of their games this stage, which is good for them. They're getting some wins. They're just not getting the wins they need. They're not getting great wins. So they're not getting match wins. So Florida Mayhem still struggling, of course. I don't know if we'll see them anytime soon looking like a strong contender, but we'll see what pieces they add to this roster to improve it. New York Excelsior beating the Washington Justice. That was a pretty one-sided affair. It was a 4-0 victory for the Excelsior. Jay Jonak went off on Hanamura. It was Flowers' debut. It was a very, very, very one-sided match. As was the Titans versus Dynasty. Now, Dynasty did take a map, which is kind of important. If you look at the Titans this stage, so far, I mean, we'll take a look at them more with Houston, but they don't look as good this stage as they did last stage. That's my takeaway so far. I think they look somewhat weaker, if only a little bit weaker. I think Seoul went for really big brain plays with this. They didn't play their main roster, their main starting roster, and I think it's because they play them again at the end of this stage. And I think their reasoning for it was kind of, see how they play, see what happens, see what works, see what doesn't work. Give them the intel so that we can prepare for this team for the end of the stage, and learn from the time that they played in the stage playoffs and now in stage 2. So when they play the end of stage 2, they kind of can hopefully, in Seoul's mind, abuse what the Titans have been doing and try to beat them that way. So I think it was a smart play, but only if it works, obviously. But the fact that they did what they did without their main roster is impressive. But my big pick game for Thursday was the Toronto Defiant against Philadelphia Fusion. I picked the Defiant. The Defiant did not win. The Philadelphia Fusion did. Fusion have looked okay. They looked up and down. I don't really know what to say. The Defiant look a lot weaker this stage than they did in stage 1. And I don't know if it's IM37 as opposed to Stellar or if it's just the meta. They didn't have the time to prepare and get to know the way this meta works like they did previously, and now you have a little bit of change with obviously a new player. But we'll see how they look. But they're struggling a bit right now. Moving into Friday, we have the LA Valiant getting their first win of the season against the Atlanta Reign. It was a good win for them. Very big win, of course. It's their first win, and you can't go wrong getting your first win of the season. It was a 3-2 victory, of course. It was a close game. If there's anything the Valiant have done very, very well so far this season, it's play close games. They played New York close. They played Atlanta close. We'll get, of course, to their game against the Gladiators. They played that one close. The Valiant look very, very good, I think, in terms of this stage compared to last stage. I think they look a lot better. I like them playing KSF over Kariv a lot. I really didn't think Kariv was all that good. So I really like the fact that we are seeing them run KSF, who I thought looked really, really good against the Reign. He got player of the match. Not that it really means anything, but I thought that he showed out. And I think that the Valiant are getting to that point where they're on that upward trajectory. They're improving. They look better, in my opinion, than the Justice and Florida. So it'll be cool to see what we get from them in the future. But Next, we had the Spark and the Uprising. The Spark beating the Uprising. Crazy, crazy map 5 finish there for the Spark. Absolutely insane win for them. And I'm happy for them because they've been kind of struggling recently. So good win for them. Glad they got it. It was a tough one to pick. Boston, though, just didn't look like they were all there. Looked like they were struggling a little bit there, but the Spark are looking like a team that I think are going to be once again on that upward trajectory, like we saw them early in stage 1. Next, the Shock and the Charge. Shock dominant again. Charge have not won a map since stage 1, so that's all I need to say. Finally, my big pick game for Friday was the Hunters and the Dragons. This game I didn't get to watch. It was a little too late for me. I had stuff to work on Saturday morning. But the Shanghai Dragons came out with the win, and I think that that's a good thing for them for a couple of reasons. One, they beat the Hunters in stage 1, and they beat them again in stage 2. So it shows that, they are continuing their successes, the things that they do well, the things that work for them. They're rolling with those things, and they're building upon those things. It's a big win for them, of course, to help their season kind of go on a more upward trajectory. I've been saying that way too often, but it's a good win for them against a team that was looking pretty strong in this meta, in this stage. And I think it's one of those wins you get to do that, and you get to really put the season back in your own hands, put it back in your control. And I'm glad that the Shanghai Dragons are far more successful already this season than they were last season. And I hope that this continues as we move forward. I really like the Dragons. I think they're a fun team to watch. I think they're playing really good Overwatch right now. So we'll see how they improve and what they do better. But a win against the Chengdu Hunters is a good win for them. Next, we can move into Saturday, where we had the London Spitfire take on the Philadelphia Fusion. The only big pick game that I got right. London Spitfire, I think, are looking really solid right now. I think the ability to kind of switch off of that, only Rhine Goats has been very good for them. I think they've just improved in general. I think they have gotten into a meta where, they don't have to purely run the basic 3-3. So they have a little bit more flexibility. They can flex off to some of these other roles. And I just think in general, they are looking more like a team that, and we see Birdring in the lineup again, which is interesting to me because I thought Guard for the most part played pretty well, but I just think the problem with Guard, I think, is just probably a lack of flexibility. Birdring is a very high skill level player. He can do a lot of things. So I like what we've seen so far from the Spitfire in this stage, and this is a good win for them, of course, avenging the loss to the Fusion in week 1. So good win for the London Spitfire, and I hope that we get to see a lot more out of them soon. Next was the Vancouver Titans beating the Houston Outlaws in a much, much closer game than I think anybody expected. The Houston Outlaws had a very, very, very solid, easy map 1 victory over the Vancouver Titans on Busan, running a very DPS-heavy composition. Then after that, they dropped the other 3 maps. But it was a close game at times, and the Outlaws looked successful when they weren't running that triple. But the problem is, of course, we're 3-3 goats, whatever you want to call it. I always switch between. But the problem, of course, is that goats is the meta for a reason. It's really, really good, and it's hard to win if you don't run it. So we have a Houston Outlaws team that I think has a very big upside. I just think Monte Cristo made a whole video talking about them needing to adopt and create their own kind of style, because they're never going to be as good in 3-3 as a team like Vancouver or New York or San Francisco, and you just kind of have to throw these teams for a loop. Because you look at Vancouver, right? They were thrown for a loop against Chengdu. They were thrown for a loop when the Outlaws were in a DPS heavy composition, right? If you run things against the Vancouver Titans that they're not used to seeing, they don't perform the best. But I just think at this point in time, there's so little you can do not on goats that it's really hard to beat that. But I think the Outlaws looked really solid, and I think they performed really, really well against one of the top teams in the league. So For me, even in a loss, this is a really big game for the Outlaws, and I think it showed that they are improving. I just need to see what more they can show us. Sorry about that one. Next was the Dallas Fuel taking on the Toronto Defiant, which I picked incorrectly. I sleeping on the Fuel a little too much. They had a big win. It was a good win for them. Pretty dominant win against the Defiant. I think it was a 4-0. So Note looking really good in his new team. They looks like they took their time off very seriously and played very well. So Fuel are looking like a very dominant team potentially in this stage and potentially in the league in general. Then we closed out Saturday with the Gladiators taking on the Charge. Very one-sided affair. Gladiators destroying the Charge. Charge right now look like a bottom 4 team. They can't find wins in matches, in maps. And granted, they've played some tough opponents. They have to play the Gladiators, in this kind of span of them struggling. They played the Gladiators twice, the Shock twice, the Titans twice. And they also played Eternal, who really kind of put a smack on them. So the Charge right now are a team with a lot of talent, but they're not playing very well. They're not playing well at all. And they really, I won't say they didn't play the Titans twice in that span, I should mention. They played the Titans twice this season, but they played the Titans once in that span, but the Shock twice, Gladiators twice, and like I said, the Eternal. And their best game was the first one they played in that group, which was against the Gladiators. So Charger really struggling right now. I don't really know fully if it's just that it's a tough schedule for them and they're just not in a meta that's working for them. I think in theory this meta should be better for them because it's more DPS oriented, but obviously I'm wrong because they aren't performing the best. So we'll see what happens to them going forward. But right now they're a team that I wouldn't put too much money behind in any capacity, unfortunately. Moving into Sunday, we have my big pick game, which I got wrong. Obviously, I've talked about it. Dallas Fuel beating the Paris Eternal. Pretty one-sided affair as well. The Dallas Fuel, like I said, looking a lot better than I gave them credit for at the beginning of the season and recently. So there you go, Dallas Fuel fans. I was wrong. Maybe. We'll see. Next, we have the Atlanta Reign taking on the Washington Justice, which the Atlanta Reign were victorious in this one, avenging their loss to the LA Valiant. It was a match. Best way to put it. It was a match. I wouldn't call it a super close match, though the Justice looked pretty good at times. The Reign are still in need of improvement, I think. I think there's still some issues, of course, with losing to Fran. I thought Baby Bay has looked good, but not great. Who knows what's going with Daco and FRD in that situation. It's a very weird situation. It's a very kind of strange situation. I'm excited to see what the Reign do going forward. And I'm very interested in seeing what they do going forward. Because I think the Reign are a fun team to watch when they play really well. But they've just been in a slump. But beating Justice is a good way to get out of that slump. So we'll see what they can do. But interesting for them going forward. Next, we have the Excelsior taking on the Mayhem. Excelsior 4-0 win there. They haven't lost a map yet at this stage. They have one draw, and that's it. So NYXL are right now one of the top teams in the stage, in the league, easily, as well. Whether or not you put them above the Shock, above the Titans, below them all, whatever, is up to you. But they right now are looking very dominant. Finally, we have the LA Valiant, LA Gladiators battle for LA matchup, which the LA Gladiators did take, but it was a 2-1 affair. It was pretty close from what I did watch on the first map, and I watched a little bit of the third and fourth map, but that was it. I was a little busy watching Game of Thrones, as well as cooking, but, I think the Valiant have looked a lot better. I think they've looked much better this stage than they did last stage. I think that KSF is really a big change for this team that I really support, that I really like. So those are my picks from last week and how I did. Let's take a look now at the stuff for week 3. So let's take a look at Thursday. where we have 4 incredible matches. I think at least um, you know the 4 top teams in the league, in my opinion, are all playing. So it'll be a really good week and a really good day to see 4, possibly 5. If you think the Fuel are a top 5 team, if you think the Fusion top 5 team, whatever, wherever your top 5 teams lie, we're going to see most of them in action here. So it'll be quite the game, quite the day. But we kick off with New York Excelsior taking the Philadelphia Fusion. They played in week 1 of this stage. New York won pretty convincingly. Nothing has really changed, in my opinion, that would give the Philadelphia Fusion any real shot at beating them this time around. So I'm going to roll with New York because I think they look really good right now. And the Fusion don't look as good. San Francisco Shock taking on Toronto Defiant. That was a pretty one-sided affair in stage playoffs. I don't expect any different. This time around, Shock look really good. LA Gladiators versus the Florida Mayhem. Mayhem don't look that great. Gladiators look really great. So, Gladiators, pretty easy pick there for me. Titans versus the Fuel, my big pick game of the week. I will say this right now. This is the one match that I think the Titans could lose this stage. This is the match that I think is the biggest obstacle for the Titans. With the way the Fuel have been playing, I really could see the Fuel beating the Titans. I don't think they will. I think the Titans look better, of course. They look like a top 3 team in the league. Fuel don't look like they're quite that good. But I definitely do think that the Fuel are good enough to beat the Titans. And I think this will be a really great game, and definitely one you don't want to miss. I'm a little upset that it's as late as it is, but, we'll manage, I guess. We'll figure it out. Everything that works in the end, or at least they say it does. Moving on to Friday, with the New York Excelsior taking on the Atlanta Reign. Atlanta Reign, I think right now are in a very, very weak period. The meta's not really working for them. They've been playing their best, so I'm going to roll with the New York Excelsior, who look incredible right now, who look arguably like the best team in the league. I can use that same argument pretty much all the time, but I'm rocking with the NYXL. Next is my big pick game, which is the Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Houston Outlaws. This, I think, could be a very close game. Obviously, it's my big pick game. I think the Outlaws looked a lot better against Vancouver than anybody would have expected them to. The Fusion are coming off of playing games in back-to-back days, which gives the Outlaws at least a little bit of an advantage in that regards. They have more time to prepare, more time to practice for this match, but I still think the Fusion are looking better right now than the Outlaws are. So I'm going to pick the Fusion. Fusion are in a bit of a skid right now. A win for them would be very, very big. So I think this is a really big game for them, and I think they pull it off. So I'm taking the Fusion over the Outlaws, but I can see this one going either way, much like the Titans Fuel game. Next is Valiant versus Justice, which taking the Valiant. I probably would have taken the Valiant even if they hadn't beaten the Reign. I think the Justice, as good as they look, in comparison to where they looked at the beginning of Stage 1, I think the Valiant look a lot better. I think they don't look as confused now. My complaint with the Valiant is still Fate. I think Fate is really where this team kind of struggles the most, which I didn't really think would be the case. I think the DPS is still not the most perfected, and it's not as great as it could be. But I think Fate kind of gets himself isolated a little bit too often, gets himself soloed, gets himself separated from the team, and then you can't really win. You don't have your Reinhardt. So that's really where this team's biggest issue lies. That's the same issue that I really see with Washington. But in general, there's just, I think the Valiant have looked better. I think the Washington Justice have had some very good moments, some very flashy moments. Corey on that Widowmaker is a very, very good thing to see. But overall, I like the Valiant better in this matchup. I mean, their differential also speaks, a lot. They're tied for the, least wins in the Overwatch League, and they don't even have, there's teams with more wins than them that have a worse differential. So I think you can look at the Valiant and you can see that they're really a pretty solid team, and I think they look like a team that can really, really, really get a big win here, get themselves up to that 2-win mark, potentially just kind of stabilize from here on out. It's gonna be a very tough schedule for the rest of their season, of course, being in the Pacific. And I think you got to put the Titans again, you got to put the Shock again, you got to put the Gladiators again. You got New York out of the way at least. This is a good game for them just to kind of get some more wins under their belt. If nothing else, it helps them kind of improve. So that's really all I got to say. Valiant, I have winning this one. Next is the Spark against the Charge. This is a game that I think will be really, really good. I'm going to take the Spark, though. They look a lot better right now. Charge are playing incredibly poorly right now. So Spark, with their big win against Boston last week, are looking a lot better. And I think that they are a team that really can start building up some momentum. I think they look a lot better now than they have arguably since the beginning of Stage 1. So this is a good time for the Spark. I think that they are going to start going on a run here. At least a little bit of one. End of the week will be a little tough for them, but early week, not so much. Next Saturday, we have my big pick game, which is the Spitfire versus Uprising, which I think is going to be an incredible game, a really close game. I'm going to go with the Spitfire, though. I think they look better right now. I think they've been playing better, but this one is really a coin toss to me. But I'm going to go with the Spitfire because I think right now they're playing better than the Uprising are. And, I think Prophet is playing out of his mind right now. And while the Uprising, I think, are really that really solid teamwork team. They're a very good team. I'm not, they had 3 straight reverse sweeps, which is telling of the capacity of their inability to win control maps the first time around. And then this stage, it was assault maps that they struggled on. So not the best look for the Uprising recently. And mainly their match against the Spark. And the London Spitfire, I think, looked very good. So there we go. Next, we have the Shanghai Dragons against the Florida Mayhem. This is the Shanghai Dragons' chance to avenge their losses that they had on the Florida Mayhem in Season 1. The closest the Shanghai Dragons ever got to a victory was against the Florida Mayhem, and I really think that the Shanghai Dragons are significantly better at this point in time than what we've seen from the Florida Mayhem. So rolling with the Dragons here, I think they look better. I think they get the win here. And I think we're talking about the Shanghai Dragons potentially making a run for that stage playoffs. And I think they're really getting those wins they need to get right now. Their record's not the best, their differential's not the best, but as they're improving, I think we could see them as one of those kind of, wild card teams that wins that play-in tournament and gets that spot. Next is the Dallas Fuel against the Seoul Dynasty. I love the Seoul Dynasty. I think they look really good, but I think the Dallas Fuel look better. The Dallas Fuel beat the Seoul Dynasty when I thought the Dallas Fuel weren't looking that great. I didn't know what to expect at the beginning of Stage 1. They beat them then. I think they beat them again this time. Not much else to say. I've been impressed with the Fuel. Dynasty have had a really tough stage so far. I think they're winless so far this stage. They've only played 2 games, and it's just been tough. They had to play the Gladiators, and they had to play the Titans. They can't catch a break this stage. Now they have to play the Fuel. Like, what is up with that? It's gonna be a tough couple of games for them. But I think that they really could win this game. It's another really close matchup, I think. But right now, I think the Fuel just look better than the Dynasty, so gotta roll the Fuel. Finally, on Saturday is the Gladiators taking on the Hunters. The Gladiators, I've said this before, look like a top 4 team right now. I really think they're very close to that upper echelon of teams. You can make an argument. Obviously, they played very close to the Valiant. Can they really be argued to be that high? They have they have 4 losses. Blah blah blah. I think they look really good. We'll get to the standings here in a bit, but they're not struggling at all. So they're a team I'm thinking very highly of right now. Next we get to Sunday, first game, Vancouver Titans against the Boston Uprising. Game I could see a potential upset in, but ultimately, the Titans are very good. I don't think they dropped this game, so giving it to them. I think I've explained my reasonings for these teams enough. You guys get the idea. Shanghai Dragons taking on the Houston Outlaws. Both these teams are at a position that they look better, but ultimately I still think the Dragons look like the better team right now. Taking them for my big pick game on Sunday. Next, we have the Spark against the Shock. I think this is the second time they've played, but I'm not positive. But regardless, the Shock look a lot better than the Spark do, so I'm going to roll with the Shock. Easy peasy. Finally, the Atlanta Reign taking on the Guangzhou Charge. Both teams that have been in a bit of a skid, but this Reign skid has not nearly been as bad as the Charge's skid, so I'm going with the Reign for this one. That's really my reasoning there. Reign just look a little bit better, and better enough that I think they win this one. So, there's my picks. Let's move on to the divisional standings, which you can see here. Not a ton of movement. The Fuel, probably the biggest one. They're in third place now in the Pacific. The Dynasty looking there in the middle of the pack. They're below the Hunters. The Valiant getting their first win. Still sitting at the bottom of the Pacific Division. It'll be a little bit before they can move up, of course, because the Charge have 3 wins, but Valiant I think could really start making a run up those standings if they can start pulling up some of these wins and being the team that I think they really are. We might potentially see them as one of those, that 12 seed really fighting for that spot. They're really at a spot right now where they have a chance, right? They're 3 wins behind some of these other teams, right? The Dragons, the Spark, the Dynasty, 2 wins behind Houston and Guangzhou, 4 wins behind Paris and Atlanta, but they can get some of these wins and get to a point where I think they're looking pretty good. But they got to get to those wins. They got to get the wins where they can get them. But that's everything for the divisional standings. Let's take a look at the top 10 stage standings, where you can see right now New York at the number 1 spot, 4-0 plus 15, with the Gladiators behind them at 4-0 plus 8. And then the Shock, Titans, and Spitfire all 3-0. Shock have still yet to lose a map at this stage, or even draw a map this stage. Titans and Spitfire looking solid, sitting there plus 8, plus 6, respectively. Dallas Fuel at 2-0 plus 5. They could definitely pass London in the stage. Hunters are the first team with a loss in the standings at 7, and Boston Uprising are there at 8 at 2-1 plus 1, with the Eternal and the Fusion sitting on the outside. So it's a very very close stage, of course, early. It's still only week 2, so we'll see how it goes. But that is everything I got for you today. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned tomorrow for 2 brand new videos. But until then, I'm going to get out of here, so thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing, as it helps out a bunch. But I will see you all in the next video. Thank you once again, and bye-bye.